Modern war presents a stark historical contradiction. The militaries with the most advanced technology, the largest budgets, and the most robust supply chains repeatedly fail to secure decisive battlefield victories against under-resourced opponents. The traditional model of conflict resembles a chess match, governed by rigid rules, defined front lines, and symmetrical pieces. But today's adversary operates entirely off the board. This dynamic has clear historical roots. In the mid-20th century, North Vietnamese forces nullified American air superiority and firepower, not by matching it, but by retreating into triple canopy jungles and subterranean networks, forcing engagements on their own terms. Decades later, in Afghanistan, the Mujahideen applied the same logic against the Soviet Union. They used harsh mountainous terrain and localized knowledge to drain a superpower's resources, rendering Soviet technological advantage irrelevant in a war of attrition. Today, that terrain has expanded. The battlefield now occupies overlapping physical, informational, and cognitive dimensions. Conventional military forces, built to dominate a two-dimensional frontline, find themselves paralyzed when attacked across digital networks and public perception. When an opponent refuses to align with conventional structures, raw firepower ceases to be a reliable metric for predicting who will win. Conventional military dominance is poorly equipped to solve asymmetric problems. Many military analyses categorize asymmetric warfare as a collection of isolated battlefield methods, such as the use of IEDs or ambushes. This represents tactical asymmetry, the use of specific tools within a conventional framework. Strategic asymmetry is the comprehensive reconceptualization of how power is applied across the entire conflict. The asymmetric combatant does not try to outshoot a stronger adversary. They abandon the pursuit of territorial control and kinetic dominance entirely, choosing instead to redefine what constitutes a win. Rather than targeting military hardware, they aim directly at the political will, economic stability, and psychological endurance that sustain the stronger forces' operations. To counter modern irregular threats, security forces must understand the underlying architectural philosophy that makes these adversaries so resilient. The foundation of this architecture is the deliberate rejection of the decisive battle. Asymmetric actors know a direct confrontation is suicidal, so they pivot to socio-political attrition, bleeding an opponent's resolve over years or decades. To survive that long, they disperse their forces across geographical and organizational boundaries, creating a resilient network. From this dispersed posture, they launch physical attacks designed to maximize psychological impact and media coverage, rather than tactical gains. This chart visualizes the most potent weapon in the asymmetric arsenal: strategic patience. Conventional militaries, especially in democratic states, are bound by election cycles, public opinion, and annual budgets. Their operations are built around defined campaign seasons. Insurgent forces operate on generational timelines. By extending the duration of a conflict, they systematically exhaust the economic resources and domestic patience required to sustain an occupying force. The Taliban's two-decade campaign against NATO forces provides clear proof of this concept. They recognized they didn't need to defeat Western forces militarily, they only needed to wait out the world's most powerful military alliance until political will collapsed. In a conflict with a vast power disparity, the force that dictates the timeline controls the strategic outcome, even if they lose nearly every tactical engagement along the way. This exposes a vulnerability inherent to powerful states: the legitimacy paradox. There is a strict tension between a conventional force's operational effectiveness and its long-term strategic legitimacy. By charting this relationship, we can map exactly how the application of overwhelming force affects international and domestic support over time. When a superior military relies on massive kinetic responses or collective punishment, they might see an immediate, sharp spike in operational security, but this almost always triggers a catastrophic collapse in moral authority. Collateral damage from these heavy-handed tactics alienates the local population and creates a generational memory of injustice. This acts as a recruitment tool that guarantees a steady stream of future adversaries. High-profile ethical violations, like those documented at Abu Ghraib, can ruin the stronger force's moral authority. Once lost, this legitimacy is nearly impossible to recover. It isn't just insurgents who exploit these constraints. Major nation-states leverage this exact asymmetry. bypassing direct military confrontation to attack an adversary's political foundations. China's three warfares doctrine relies on psychological, legal, and media campaigns. By manipulating international law and global discourse, they achieve strategic objectives while remaining below the threshold of armed conflict. The historical record is clear. Winning a localized kinetic battle while sacrificing political legitimacy is a strategic defeat. To execute these strategies effectively, modern asymmetric forces have had to abandon the rigid command structures of the past. This is the structure of a traditional military, built on centralized command and control. Orders flow down, intelligence flows up. It is efficient but structurally fragile. Conventional counterinsurgency doctrine is designed to exploit this structure. The goal is to identify and eliminate the central leadership nodes, a decapitation strike that causes the entire structure below to paralyze and collapse. Modern adversaries counter this by adopting a decentralized, biological-style mesh network. There is no central headquarters. Instead, dozens of independent cells share equal connectivity. These cellular architectures absorb kinetic damage effortlessly. When a prominent node is neutralized, the network doesn't collapse. The surrounding cells simply redraw their connections, instantly bypassing the damage to regenerate the network. Empowered by encrypted messaging platforms and open-source intelligence, these autonomous cells sync their movements across massive urban environments without ever receiving a top-down order. Traditional military doctrine, which relies on targeting leadership and disrupting supply chains, struggles to achieve its intended effect against these self-healing networks. This structural resilience is amplified by a severe economic vulnerability, known as cost asymmetry. This ledger compares the financial burden of state military power against commercial adaptation. A modern fighter aircraft requires hundreds of millions of dollars to develop and field. An asymmetric actor can deliver a lethal payload using an off-the-shelf commercial drone for a fraction of that cost. The disparity extends to production speed. Bureaucratic military acquisition cycles take decades to field new technology. Insurgents modify and deploy consumer tech in a matter of days. By strapping improved munitions to cheap quadcopters, non-state actors now possess the precision strike and aerial reconnaissance capabilities that historically required a national air force. We are already seeing the emergence of AI-driven autonomous swarms. Dozens of networked low-cost drones designed specifically to overwhelm and exhaust expensive conventional air defenses. This democratization extends into the digital realm. Commercial spyware, synthetic media, and algorithmic manipulation have made cognitive warfare accessible to non-state groups. Small hacktivist collectives with commercial-grade equipment can now compromise critical infrastructure, crippling power grids or financial systems without firing a single physical weapon. The barrier to entry for projecting strategic violence has dropped. Today, it requires little more than an internet connection and a consumer drone. When the weaponization of time, decentralized networks, and democratized technology converge, the result is a massive shift in the balance of global power. This model takes the historical advantages of the nation-state, massive scale, centralized logistics, and heavy firepower, and turns them into severe operational liabilities. The nation-state no longer holds a monopoly on the application of high-level violence. Capabilities once reserved for global powers are now distributed among non-state actors and decentralized networks. For policymakers and military leaders, this means that maintaining a massive conventional arsenal now offers rapidly diminishing returns against an agile, non-state adversary. Future conflicts will not be won by decisively destroying enemy formations on a battlefield. They will be won by carefully mapping and disrupting ideological networks, severing resource flows, and controlling public narratives. Navigating this landscape requires mastering network dynamics, securing information dominance, and balancing tactical force against the need for